Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
Welcome back to another episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host, Drew Miller. We're here with the incredible CEO of the Grounds Management Association, Geoff Webb. How you doing? Thank you so much for taking time on such short notice. How's everything going? How's your week been? Obviously, the Grounds Management Week.
Yeah, I've been out and about seeing some of the sites that are taking part, and it's been fantastic. I mean, it's just got so organic now. That it's just a brilliant week to highlight the industry over here.
Yeah, we obviously admire it from afar. Some of us try to take part in it a little bit, from across the pond and everything. But with the end of Grounds Week, what has it been like, seeing the impact of highlighting the incredible people that make sport possible there, and how has that been for you just being a part of it?
Yeah, well, I think for us, what we're trying to do with Grounds Week is the original concept was to take it beyond the industry. And in all honesty, it's to get our industry onto coffee table magazines where you probably wouldn't talk about it. And this is, I think, the fourth or the fifth year. I can't remember now. It's been going that long.
Around there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So from our perspective, it's just taken off, as I say, really organically. And we've kind of made it now so that you basically get the kit from us with all the logos and everything. But then you can apply your own approach to it, which we think is a much better way for everybody to embrace it, because you can do what you like. But the point is you're all celebrating the same thing, which is the Grounds Week. And our strapline, which is in our business strategy, is making sport possible. So it's all about not forgetting the team behind the team.
I love that. I love the team behind the team, because really, honestly, like that's always sort of been our goal with our program, is bring awareness to the people that make it all possible, where it all begins before there's even any chance of having a game, so I absolutely love that. Now, like you said, 4 or 5 years ago, what was sort of the concept, how it all sort of came to light and how everything worked to, it's such a simple concept, but you guys took it so much further, like you said, further than the industry, beyond that, bringing awareness to that local community, to the broader community, that truly don't understand, like, this is such an incredible industry and there are so many incredible people that are like make it up. What was sort of that process like of making such a simple concept such an incredible impact?
Well, I think we're all really conscious, and in the UK, that although that I think we've got a good reputation globally, we still have a lot of work to do within our own country to get the profession really recognised in the way that we see it. So it's not patronising, but it's properly understood. And the best way to do that is to change the narrative. So one of the things we did alongside this back in, what was around 2019 now, was we rebranded what was then called the Institute of Groundsmanship, which is very British, very kind of linked to its past. But originally we were actually called the National Association of Groundsmanship itself. So what we've now got is the Grounds Management Association. That did one thing overnight. It actually brought in to our population 50% of that population that previously was disenfranchised by the old name. So that was part of it, because what we're trying to say is this is an industry for everybody. It doesn't matter what gender you are, what background you come from, where you are, you're welcome to come and be a part of this. So Grounds Week became the hub, if you like, of how do we go about a campaign and how far can we take that campaign to encourage the stakeholders, the partners we work with, which is all the professional sports leagues over here, and looking at the big volunteer market we also embrace over here as well. How do we bring all that together alongside those people who work in the schools, the colleges, the universities, and the parks and recreation teams that we know exist as well, but have a real struggle year round because of funding over here. So Grounds Week just became a focal point that no matter where you stood in the industry, you can be a supplier of kit and equipment, you can be a salesperson, a marketeer, you can be a head groundsman, you can be an apprentice, as we would say over here. Everything transpired that we could create that focal point. And as I said, we've built it up over the years, so it's become a lot more organic, a lot more easy to just do, really through social media, which has totally taken off. And in all honesty, I don't think we ever thought about it in the first phase of doing this as anything other than a UK initiative. But of course, the power of the internet means that it was last year, in fact, we worked with the SFMA, we made a link with the SFMA, and they've done that again this year. So it's great to have you guys sort of getting involved. But we've been, there's another area we weren't probably focusing on, but we've got people in India, in Saudi Arabia, we've got the Middle East. We've almost got all the continents across the world now getting involved with this, as well as Europe. So it's just taken off.
I mean, it's been incredible to see, and like you said, social media having a big impact on that, being able to, connect so much further. And I think it's been a huge, component of that is that social media aspect. So it's incredible to see the growth and what it's done. You sort of brought up, obviously, the name and how you've rebranded to be more inclusive and how incredible that impact has been to see, from the grassroots up to the Premier League, all of these different people. Can you sort of speak to the history of the Grounds Management Association and how it's sort of grown to this point where, again, you're seeing such incredible events and incredible people and incredible, just overall growth towards a better future? What has that been like, and how has the history played a role in that?
Yeah, so we were founded in 1934 on what they call the playing fields of Eton. So Eton School is probably the most elite school in the country. And it was actually at the time the late Prince Philip who came up to our founder, who was a guy called W.H. Bowles, who said to him, I think it would be a good idea if you formed an association. So typically with our industry, the association was formed in a pub in London, in the city of London, where
That's
13...
incredible. I'm sorry. That's just awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so we were founded in a pub, and we still go back to that pub. But the pub still sort of exists in the middle of the city of London. It was called the London Stone Pub, and 13 ground staff all got together and all put £1 into the pot, and that was the birth of the association back in 1934. And then it's grown through hard work, really, with a lot of good people over the years that have pulled the structures together. And then I think more recently, I mean, I've come in from outside the sector in the last 20 years, but I came in with a sports background, having worked in sports bodies over here. And I just could see a disconnect completely between what our industry was doing and how they talked back to the sports sector itself. So we've worked hard, definitely in the last 20 years, to correct that imbalance, really, and form relationships. So, for example, the Premier League here pay the GMA a membership fee, which enables every person working in a Premier League club, of which there's 20, to be a member of the GMA. So they don't have to pay for it themselves. That's covered by the Premier League. But you can see straight away you've got that engagement opportunity then. And we're really about education, training and development, lifting the profession, advancing people's careers, helping them through a best practice approach, lobbying on their behalf, doing research where research needs to be done. And we do that much more often now, more periodically as well. So everything needs to sort of come together. But there is a process behind everything that we do. So we have a really good board. Our board now is made up of people who work across the sectors in sport over in the UK. So we've got people like Neil Stubley, who's the head groundsman at Wimbledon Tennis. We've now just got Jim Butter, who's just joined us from Twickenham, which is the home of rugby, which probably not such a popular sport in the US, but big over here.
It's incredible to watch Jim do his job. It's incredible, the traffic and everything and how he does it. Just mind blowing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but great.
No, it's just great that we've got that engagement, and then we've got other representatives who are in universities working on university grounds. We've got representatives who get the volunteer sector, which is where the real, what we would call grassroots happens. And just in England alone, there's 40,000, I'm going to call them football pitches, but I'm talking soccer over here. And we've got a team of people through another relationship we formed that have done over 8,000 pitch visits now and assessments. And we're working with the football bodies, the cricket bodies, the rugby bodies to improve the state of pitches over here. And we've introduced something called the Grounds Management Framework. And just to explain that in its briefest sense, you can go on a website and look at all this, by the way. But if you look at it, it's all about two things. First is, how do you actually assess the surface and give it a benchmark? So you can do the agronomy aspect of assessing a pitch, and then you can come out with some markings for that. And basically, the further up the pyramid you go, the more complex that test becomes. And then we also align that with, so that's one thing, we know we can get somebody on the right path to improve a pitch, but what about the individuals that are going to do that? What skill qualification levels have they got? So the second part is all about that. It's how you educate the people on site to be the best that they can, to be a better version of themselves, maybe from where they start. So we're working right now with the FA in England, who've got a target of improving 20,000 pitches by 2030, and taking those from poor, which would be a rating under this system, to good. So we're systematically working through that target figure. And I'm sure it's the same in the US at the moment. There's some challenges to that, because a lot of our pitches are under the Parks and Recreation departments, whose funding has just been cut, and public sector over here is in a real state, and so is that advancement of leisure facilities as well. So there's some challenges, but there's also some really good successes. And where you get the success, where you get the pitch turned around, what happens is the local coaching community then turns up a pitch that has been improved, and they go, "Hey, how did you get this pitch to play like Wembley Stadium?" You tell them the story, and then they want Wembley Stadium. And it becomes, again, a word of mouth exercise, a bit organic again. And then we can evidence that through Grounds Week every year, and kind of create that perfect sort of harmony, really, in terms of, how you manage through the seasons.
That's incredible. I mean, the sort of the length in which you guys connect with people, the way that you are focusing not only on the Premier League guys and all of it's phenomenal. But hearing it, and my next question, you sort of answered a lot of it because there are so many benefits just from that explanation. But when it comes to being a member of the association, what are sort of the benefits and the initiatives for professionals sort of to join and be a part of something truly that's phenomenal and just incredible to be a part of, just its basic, association, being a part of it and what you get from being a member?
Well, you get to talk to me, which must be the biggest benefit going out of all of them.
Of course.
Actually,
of course.
That's definitely the worst.
Yeah.
No, joking apart, I mean, what the main benefit really is you immediately get access to all the training courses. And I mean, during COVID, we used to do a lot of face-to-face courses, but we were completely shut down during that period. So we've converted now a range of courses, 15 courses are now online, and they can be very basic entry level to how do you prepare a soccer pitch through to, cricket. So we work on winter and summer sports. So you get up to a 50% discount on your training courses once you become a member, as opposed to not being. So that's a clear benefit. The other things are we do run a big trade show over here called Saltex, which is free entry. So you get some added benefits by going to Saltex if you're a member. And again, that brings in around about 400 brands. It's usually around about anywhere between 150, 180 exhibitors. And that's now at the national indoor arena that we've got in this country for exhibitions. So again, we took it from an outdoor trade show to an indoor trade show 10 years ago. and that again has grown. So we get around about 8,000 people every year across 2 days to that, and we then build into the event the education and training, which we call Learning Live. So we will have a range of subjects, probably around 35, 40 subjects across the 2 days, with various people coming in and out, presenting on that, all on the show floor. And that again is great because it focuses on the products and the innovation that happen year on year. We're a bit different to, say, the SFMA that I've been to. It's a much more concentrated business to business trade show. But it's very popular with our sector. So it's a networking event as much as it is looking at the machinery, the equipment, and all the innovation that you see there. But it's become a meeting place too. So it's very social, as you know, our industry, I think, on both sides of the pond. We work hard and we play hard. And it just enables you to create a focus again at a different point in the year. Now it happens to be November. And then what we're looking at all year round is how do we better serve our membership? So some of that can be advocacy work. So it's stuff that you wouldn't see, behind the scenes. We're going in talking to politicians or government or stakeholders that I mentioned, and just trying to build relationships the whole time so that we've got the whole of the landscape covered, and we can put the best possible case really for people's salaries, the way they're treated in the workplace. We're looking at all the mental health packages that have been a big factor since COVID hit and probably before. It's all about trying to be current and trying to look at yourself and challenge yourself. And what I do with my team is probably every 6 months we sit down and say, what have we got right? What's missing? What do we need to do next? And we're on just the hamster wheel the whole time with that.
I love that, just because a lot of things get lost in sports, and like you guys said, a lot of the movement is trying to bring awareness to that, but like also bringing awareness to the human being behind it is something that I think it's so lost in, not just grounds management, but like all areas of any industry. So I think it's truly incredible to take that time to self-reflect, and what you guys are doing is just unparalleled. So I appreciate that. And again, just from afar, just to see how that's, bringing in new successes and new opportunities for, the industry professionals we all love, and all the incredible, like you said, from the grassroots to the Premier League, all the successes that come along with that. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into planning events like Saltex and all those other things that you have. What have been some of the newest initiatives for the Grounds Management Association, and what has worked and has shown great returns sort of on maybe investment in time, not money, but like time and energy, and working towards, something, where you're benefiting for all members,
So I think really just I'll pick on three things, if I may. I mean, first, I've mentioned the grounds management framework. I mean, for us, that's a really important ongoing program that we've got, but it's only got launched this year. We've been working behind the scenes a lot to try and work out, especially on the technical standards, how does that fit every sport going? Because we also do horse racing, and if we were asked, we'd do greyhound racing as well, because it's still a track, right?
Yep.
But that gives something tangible that we think's been missing over here, to not only go in and talk to your employer about, or your board of directors about, but it's actually will enable people in situ to have an argument to take to that boardroom. They'll be able to compare it to site down the road or a similar facility. And it may be that they're overworked and underpaid, because that is one of the factors of the industry. And what we want everybody to be is fairly paid and working appropriately. So that's one thing. The next one is we've done a lot around what we now have just literally this week rebranded another thing, which we've always called our young board for about the last 10 years, which is now called Next Gen. And that's all about promoting careers into the industry. So again, we've got a really rich, diverse group of people who are now working with us in their 20s, and they're ambassadors for the sector. So we can help them, profile them, but they're putting stuff back in. So one of the ideas that came from them as a group was what we call over here schools into stadia. So we've been targeting schools where you've got probably 14-year-olds going to 16, and we've targeted the sciences. So how do you apply science to sports turf and what we call science, technology, and the kind of maths, if you like. So, for example, a corner flag is a right angle, right? Well, that's Pythagoras theory right there. So we've had kids at 14. They don't realise it. They're marking out a corner flag, but they're actually being taught maths at the same time. They're getting Pythagoras theory, but it's done in such a way that young people engage in it. It's not, here's a textbook, here's a very laborious way of learning it. It's done by bringing it to life practically, and we're a practical facing industry. So that's a really good example.
To my ears, this is what we do here in our program. We have high school.
Oh, okay.
We do. So our program, sorry, I don't mean to interject, but we have a turf management program, and it's an elective course in their schedule. And we teach them how to maintain athletic fields and grounds and all the surrounding areas of our school. So what you're saying is exactly what we aim to do. So it's incredible. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the nice thing again is, we've worked with, we've literally done one on Monday. I was down in Bristol, which is in the southwest of the country. That is a setup. It's called Ashton Gate, if you ever want to look it up.
For sure.
But the guys there with that facility, they have female rugby, male football, female football, and they've just had 69 matches through the season. They've done some triple headers there, which is tough for any grounds team, right?
For sure.
But the young guy there facilitated the schools into stadium event. On top of all that, he was really nervous about it. He came out the other side of that and he was buzzing because he'd just done a great thing for a group of school kids who were thinking about, well, actually, they probably didn't have the confidence before going on to this session. And 3 of them are now thinking about going along on a match day, which was the offer at the end of the day, to volunteer, which may or may not get them into the industry.
That's incredible.
But that's the organic growth you get from an event like that. And we've done a few of those. We've had clubs like Liverpool Football Club engage with us on that, Leicester City. And I think you're asking me about some of the personalities over here. There's a guy called John Ledwidge who was now at Man City.
He's a friend of mine, so he's a great guy.
Well, John knows me quite well.
I'm sure.
I was on a trip with him with the original, what we then called the Young Board, which was then sponsored by Ransoms Jacobson. And that whole trip came about through a guy called Dave Withers, who was rung up during one of our awards events. I was in Coventry, and I had a chat with one of his staff, and she passed the phone over to Dave, and I said, Dave, how about this as an idea? And he backed it. And for 2 years, we flew backwards and forwards with a group of young Brits, of which John Ledwidge was one of them. And now he's, been through Coventry, where he worked on the Olympics. He then worked to Leicester, and he's now at Man City. So doing pretty well. And there's a lot of good other people that I could mention that have come through that route. But outside of that, we've got some great people who give a lot back. We've now got Paul Burgess back on our shores, who I think guys know over there
Paul's
really
great.
well.
Yeah. Excited for him to go back, for sure.
Yeah, well, he's at my local club. I think he might need to get his boots on because the team is really poor at the moment. But, we might need a bit of help on the pitch, literally with the players' side.
Yeah.
But, Paul's an innovator. He's just, I don't know whether people have seen on socials, but he's just put in the first set of full-on LED lights, looking at all the energy efficiency aspect of how you manage pitches with, an increasingly skeptical environmentalist kind of ethos coming into play in terms of how we manage stadiums from an ethics point of view, environmental point of view, and a cost perspective point of view. So all of that innovation is there. And we just try and embrace it. we've got people like Neil Stubley at Wimbledon, always really open to helping the GMA. Sits on our board, as I said. Jim Butter covering rugby, and we've got some great people from cricket, which is massive here, and people like Meg Lay coming along, who are ambassadors for the paucity of women, I have to say, working in our sector. They tend to be working in sales teams for suppliers over here. So probably 10% of our population, if you looked at it job wise, you'd probably say there's a female in a role doing marketing or sales, etc. If you look at it as we would say on the tools, probably 2% would be almost optimistic. And one of the things we've just done, focusing again on all careers in grounds managers, not just on the ground, but we just had a brilliant day out at the women in football, what is called the Women's Super League here. And it was a match against Arsenal v Tottenham, played at the Emirates Stadium. 60,000 fans there, which is big for us. And sellout crowd, 13 females working on that match, which was a breakthrough moment, never happened before. So we're working on schemes like that now to take that to other sports. Cricket did it with what we call the Ashes last year as well. But we hope to do that and replicate that elsewhere and get across all the sports so that, we just open up the opportunities for people to come into this sector, because there is a danger. I'm not sure what your demographics are like over in the US at the moment, but there's an ever-growing population of over 55 plus here.
Yeah,
and they're not being replaced fast enough.
There's a struggle, which with our program, like we're hoping and aiming to help with that, because we're definitely in the same boat where we're starting to see that them not age out, but like they're getting to a point where there's really nothing on the bottom, where they can grow. And you sort of covered my next question with the all women's crew for the Arsenal, game. What would sort of your thoughts specifically on that event? Being able to put a group of women together, how truly transformational was that event to be creating a brighter and even more diverse future for the Grounds Management Association? What was that sort of like, being able to be a part of it and truly understand? We were able to do that here in the US at the Softball Little League World Series, where we had the first ever full woman grounds crew, full woman umpire crew, full woman teams, obviously professional, at the Little League World Series, where everyone on the field from the ground up were all females. What was that moment like? Because it was truly like mind blowing for us over here. What was that like there with those 13 women being able to have such a large impact on what the future truly is going to hold?
I just think it was it was a mix of emotions, if I'm honest, but in a really good way. I interestingly, just after the whole event was finished, I ended up on the same what we call here the London Tube Network, with a few of the team that had they were going back to where they live. They came from all over the country, and they were shattered. They'd been working hard for 3 days, but the buzz they got in front of that crowd was amazing for them, and they did a brilliant job. But I think what we're all saying coming away from that event is it shouldn't be a one-off event, and it shouldn't really hit the headlines, if we're honest, because it should be the norm. So we think the next challenge is for example, there's 92. I actually haven't said this to anybody, so you've got an exclusive here. So there are 92 professional football clubs in England alone. So I've got this idea about the 92 and forming the 92 club and challenging those professional football clubs to engage females in every one of them and giving them a date to do that by. So that's the kind of thing we do here.
That's phenomenal.
We just like to challenge a bit. We think outside the box, bit of lateral thinking. But as I say, it should be easy. And for one reason or another, sometimes it's not. And you have to realize there are also people out there who are cynical about this. In fact, I did see, regrettably on some of the socials, some real hate posts, some real trolls out there just because we'd highlighted women for a day. And it was International Women's Day and it was linked to that. But if you take away that you've got 60,000 fans who've never thought about potentially a career in sports turf management as a female, there was your shop window. And that was the light up moment. And by the way, we were busy networking away during that. I was sitting with the director of the Women's Super League, and I was dealing with the agent of your new female coach coming over from Chelsea, Emma Hayes. I was sitting next to her agent, and she was blown away by what was going on. And we were all on the pitch afterwards, and you're just making connections the whole time by doing that sort of event. And credit my team, and in particular, I've got a person called Jennifer Carter, who we've nabbed her as a communications expert from Liverpool Football Club. And Jen's just got a real passion for promoting women in sport, let alone women in turf. So it's a really natural fit for us, and just something that we will continue to do and embrace going forwards.
I absolutely love it. I mean, it's incredible to see, and being able to hear you just challenging just a group of people where, like you said, the thing I love the most, like, this should just be normal, I can speak to the girls in my class, like, they're more meticulous, they have a passion for it, and it's just what you did, and being able to show them that and have them understand that, like, this is truly a possibility with what you want to do with your life and you can excel. It truly means the world to me, and being able to do that, it will change this world for the good and for better, moving forward. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, obviously, for everything that you're doing. Now, a little bit of a shift. You obviously talked a little bit about, John and what he did at Leicester City. What are some of the, professionals that have had a large impact? I talk to John all the time about his apprenticeships and all the sports turf academy that he created there at Leicester before moving on. What has it been like seeing professionals have an impact on the growth and sort of the overall, movement, like you said, with the next gen, obviously, while he was during that time as a younger professional, what has it been like to see those professionals, and what are some of those professionals that really have had a lasting impact on the industry there?
Well, I mean, yeah, John gets a lot of mentions, and deservedly so. But I've seen other people, for example, who were also on that original trip that I went on, like Nick Phillips at Tottenham's Hotspur training ground, which is an amazing facility, and it's great to see people like Nick, who's probably not as prevalent in sort of social media, but equally impressive in the work that he's achieved over the years and the level that he's attained by being part of the club setup there. We've mentioned Paul again, we've mentioned Jim, I've mentioned Neil, but there are people in the sport of cricket that are really skilled at what they do. And I think in particular cricket over here, I don't know whether it's the same with baseball. I'm trying to find that similarity, but the cricket community as players can be highly critical of the wickets that ground staff produce.
Very similar to the infield at baseball. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I used to work at pro baseball too. So yeah, it's
okay.
They all have sort of this like grading assessment of each stadium, and they give sort of grades on the infield and everything and what they are, critical of.
Yeah.
Is it too hard, too firm, not enough, too wet? Like, it's very similar. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think that in cricket, I don't know why they just don't get an armchair out in the outfield and stick one of these commentators or ex-players in it, because that's what they are. They're armchair experts. They're not experts.
Correct.
And I think that would embarrass them greatly, and it would be very funny to see an armchair in the
I think we'd all enjoy it very much. We all enjoy it for sure.
But I mean, there are people like Gary Barwell at Edgbaston, and Gary was brilliant. He was really the first to do the all-female cricket team last year for the part of the Ashes between England and Australia. But I just think, in particular, for whatever reason, those guys don't get the credit they deserve, and they get more of a beating from players than possibly football or even rugby. which are probably, your three main sports. Wimbledon is just a different pressure in itself. I mean, that's 2 weeks of huge global pressure. And what they do there is incredible. But there's a whole team that sit behind Neil there, and he's a very good manager. But what I'm always impressed with Neil is he's good at talking off the field of play and talking to the hierarchy and managing the pressure that you get from press intrusion, for example, that you do get. I mean, everybody's fascinated by the court of Wimbledon. And, over here in the UK, we love our gardens, and everybody thinks the stripes at Wimbledon is what they should have in their garden. So it becomes a public interest thing, even if you don't like sport. That and strawberries become the topic of the day, really. So you've got such a diverse sector, and then I think about the private schools that we have over here in the education sector, and you've got some unbelievably talented people who work on a myriad of surfaces. So quite often they might have a 9-hole golf course alongside the sports facilities, and the quality of those facilities sells a school space. It's a commercial environment they're operating in. So the look and feel as you walk through the door of that college or that university is down to the ground staff. And I think they're the biggest asset colleges have got, because the last thing you see is the classroom. The first thing you see is what you walk into.
Big part of recruiting, students, dollar signs, everything, for sure. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Yeah. So presentation is everything, right? And I think that's what I see everywhere you go. If you've got somebody who likes this career and is passionate about it, you're just going to have a fantastic looking facility because they take so much pride in it. What you don't see necessarily is the struggles they may have day in, day out to keep it there or to get it there in the first place. And I think that's where the beauty of a body like the GMA comes in, because we could go in and maybe look at where are the issues in a particular situation. And we've gone in and we've represented staff sometimes in a disciplinary process that we don't promote that, but we've gone in where we think it's necessary to help somebody out. And it's a real community, that the whole thing that happens over here.
I love the support in that area, because that's truly, I think that's where like the passion really thrives, is the process and what it takes to be able to get to that product that you're aiming for, because that's where all the struggle is. And that's where you share and network and talk about, well, what did you do? How did you cover this? What did we do with that? Like, maybe we could try what you did. I think that supporting that through the initiatives that you've had is what really brings it all together and allows it to be successful. So I think it's incredible in that aspect of it. Now you sort of touched base on a little bit. One of my favorite things that I absolutely love about the Grounds Management Association is the investment that you make in the younger generation, the younger professionals, when it comes to, the development of those that, have gotten into the industry, not really this isn't about the who's coming in. It's who's already in, but in that lower level and just be starting off their career. And like you said, it's the next gen. I love that branding. That's incredible. I learned about it yesterday because I was like, I thought it was young professionals, but it's putting, effort behind growing them and sort of guiding them in a leadership role and allowing them to understand that, there's so much more to the industry than just managing your pitch. There's the people, there's understanding that, leadership plays a huge role in that. What has it been like, and what is sort of your hope and goals to work with that next gen board in sort of the growth of the association as well as the whole entire, community as a whole?
Yeah, so I mean, we always are on the lookout for people who want to be ambassadors and give something back, and in every age profile. So if you count from, I mean, we engage sometimes with 16-year-olds. If you go 16 to 25, you'll find a percentage you want to really engage and help the association, and as you keep going through, you're always going to get a percentage of that total who are willing to help. Then you get some people who might think, I might help, but I'm not quite sure. Should I? Or am I too busy? Or I don't want to even. how do you persuade those people to get on board? And I think it's to show progress as much as you can do. So one of the things that we're more formally engaged in is we have a big system over here where the apprenticeship program is your start out position. And what's happened over the last 2 or 3 years, particularly with the content of that, is the modules that you put into that program, and you may be doing it for 18 months or maybe 2 years now, is shifted away from maybe just the technical horticultural based components that always existed. So, do you know the names of 2,000 Latin plants? Probably the answer is yes. Will that get you, a £500,000 investment if you go into your boardroom tomorrow? Probably won't. So how do you square that circle? So for me personally, because I've come from more the management route, I think getting more management modules into base camp training is really key. So that might be, how do you sell yourself in 5 minutes? How do you learn, if you don't know already, how to do a spreadsheet properly? How do you present a budget? Are you shy? If so, why are you shy? Do you like talking one-to-one, or do you like talking to a presentation? If you ever talk to Paul Burgess, he and I, going back many years ago, were both invited to the Czech Republic to talk there, and it was our first experience of, we'd never met each other before. There was another guy called Alan Ferguson, who now is at FIFA, running this sort of global program for FIFA. And every sentence we spoke during this session of presentations, we were interrupted by the interpreter. And I'm telling you, go to the Czech Republic, because if you say, I said this, that will take about half an hour to translate. It's an amazing language, but it kind of completely threw all of us, really. And Paul particularly hates speaking because of that experience to a crowd of people. He doesn't like standing up in front of people and doing a PowerPoint, for example. But you've met Paul, I'm sure, and he's one of the best and most interesting people when you walk around the facility and you get out of him his knowledge, and his willingness to share that is second to none. It's fantastic, and a lot of people appreciate him for that over here.
100%.
And I think what I'm just saying by using that analogy is that we're there to facilitate a better version of yourself in your career. And if we can put together the course content that can help you get that, so you can get a better job, you can get a pay rise, you want to negotiate better hours, you need to stand up for your team. All of those things, I think for me personally, and what we're looking to do is integrate that thinking a lot more early in the journey of education than I think has been the case previously. So if you go back 20 years, if you go back 10 years, probably wasn't as prevalent as I think it needs to be now, because sport is global. TV contracts put loads of pressure on. I mean, you've got the World Cup for soccer coming up. That's going to be really interesting with the American stadiums, when you've got to turn around the surfaces that you've currently got in your stadiums to the ones you're going to have. And I'd be really interested as a fly on the wall to see how that transpires.
So I've talked to Dr. Sorokin. He's at the University of Tennessee. He's doing all the research right now. I've tried to, he hasn't talked too much about it, but I tried to pick his brain about, the indoor stadiums. I'm like, what are you going to do? I'm so intrigued, because there's so many different things that you try and take into account. Like, artificial lighting can only do so much, right? Well, they're figuring out how to do it more, right? So like you said, it's incredible to just see, like with Paul, like his mind is it's never ending. What he's the stadium in Madrid. It was in Madrid. I think I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Who thinks like that? It's incredible to, just have discussion with professionals, and what you're doing with the modules and everything. Like, I think that's what's really lacking, not in like a bad way, in like our universities. You know, I going through Virginia Tech, I had a great, incredible opportunity, like you said, knowing all the Latin names and everything. Didn't know all the Latin names, I'm gonna be honest with you. But you know, budgeting out stuff, like all those things that like you really need, you really only learn on the job, which is, it's not like terrible, but it's like you said, having a module to explain to you how to do a spreadsheet properly instead of figuring it out the 10th time you try doing it is something that is an absolute game changer. So again, that's just incredible to hear from an association that's, again, that aims to support. um Sort of going into our next question, like obviously those modules and different opportunities for education are incredible ways to, you know, help those that have excited for a future in the industry. What is what is it that you're focusing on for that younger group, you know, bringing in that opportunity outside of these, again, educational settings? What are you most excited for that future generation of the industry and moving forward and growing that into, again, something that's become more diverse, greater, and just overall, you know, at a level of professionalism that, no offense to us and no offense to the SMA, we haven't attained, you know? What has it been like for you being able to do that?
I, I think we're still on that path. I don't think you can ever get off and think you've finished. I think if you finish that, that's a dangerous step to take because you're kind of stepping off forced momentum. So, like I said to you, we always challenge ourselves internally as a team. You know, as I say, every 6 months we look at how we're doing, and if something's not working, don't be afraid to go back and alter that and fix that. Is what I'd say. And I think when you ask the question about, well, what's it going to be like for the generation coming in? Let's say 20s to 30s now. They're coming into something that's a lot more organised than it was 10 years ago. But they're also coming into a more pressurized environment because, as I said, sports globalized and it's commercialized at professional level. So you're in that sort of spotlight probably more than you used to be. So if you go back to where we started with Grounds Week's great in a way, but as we say over here, one swallow doesn't make a summer, and in this case, 1 week doesn't make a year. And it's what can you do in the other 51 weeks that you've got left in the year to take the learnings and the appreciation you get from raising the profile through initiative like Grounds Week and implementing change. So, as I said, for example, with the initiative that we did with the 13 ground staff, all female, recently, is that shouldn't be a novelty. By next year, we would hope to see some progress across the board in a lot of places where more females are being employed than they are right now. And if not, we'll be going back and asking why not. That's why I quite like the concept of the 92. And I think you have to challenge the people who you're engaged with. I mean, we have broken down barriers by getting into the administration, for example, of professional leagues. The grounds management framework that I've talked about is very popular and in use because we've got a relationship over here with the Football Association at grassroots level. So we know we can tackle potentially 40,000 grassroots football pitches, which is where all the players start from. But how do you do it with the Premier League? Well, we've got a live conversation right now with the Premier League, who we hope by season 25-26 may actually implement the grounds management framework, which we've produced for them, which then makes that a lot easier. If you get the Premier League doing it, you're more likely to get other sports doing it, like rugby, like cricket, and you get that domino effect from that. And if we can get that framework established, I do think that will create a much more tangible model that will enable ground staff who maybe don't get the best deal from the employer to get a much better one going forwards, because it will be a moral arm twist for one, but it will also be evidence that they can't hide from anymore. And it will put them on the spot a bit. So if you're not paying the right wage, if you're not treating people fairly in the workplace, then why is that? And again, I mean, we're finding out things now where, and I'm sure it's the same in America, is if you go into an office in the UK, or you go into an office in America, and I know we're all working from home because of COVID, and we're getting back to where do we work, where don't we? But if you walk into an office, you know you're going to have good toilet facilities, you've got a bathroom, you may have a canteen, you've got somewhere to eat, it's warm, you've got a desk. How many ground staff teams have a similar facility? So if you're going to encourage females in, have you got female changing facilities? Yes or no? And it's just those basic fundamental foundations that you need to ask what sounds like a stupid question, really, but actually is fundamental to change.
Yeah,
So
equity
those are the
is
sort of things we
critical
do.
for sure. And I love how you say it's the dumb questions, like this shouldn't be a topic of conversation. It should just be, the ethical thing to have for everyone. And it's sad that there are those conversations that are happening. But it's something that I think, like what you're saying, by having that standard in the framework, with the Premier League, it's gonna trickle down all the way down to, the younger, the lower level Parks and Rec, hopefully, and then I love how you say other sports and everything, because it's something that we see in America that's a little different. Sports kind of separate themselves and they have their own thing. And yes, they discuss things, but there isn't really unity across in the sense of, well, this is what we have, so you should have the same thing, because they think that it's a completely separate, way of doing things, from baseball to football and our football, that is, sorry. But again, I love the fact that you guys are, taking all of those aspects that really you wouldn't think need to be included because you just expect it as, a decent human being to have,
Yeah, and I
but
think that's what you see. And you mentioned John and the academy. I mean, what he's built there, he's convinced an entrepreneur, billionaire,
yeah.
to build basically a college facility for ground staff.
Yeah, when I
So
talked to him, I
if
was
one
like,
can do it,
how did you do that? he's,
yeah,
he was like, it was a conversation. I'm like, can I talk to him too, maybe?
yeah.
But it's
I mean, it's a fantastic
incredible.
story, and it's a great facility as well. But then you've got you've got other things that are happening now, because obviously there's a lot of international investment. There's a lot of Americans who are owning Premier League football clubs, for example. So the NFL is coming over here more and more. You've got Carl Stanley at Wembley. You've got the team at Tottenham Hotspur hosting NFL. And there's a really good information exchange going on, I know, between the American teams that are coming over, and then we're coming over to learn likewise. But literally, before I came on this podcast, I was reading a story. Wembley's just released today about 100% recyclable pitch.
I
So
just watched the video too, so
there
it's
you go.
incredible. It's incredible.
So, Carl is going to end up, by the sound of it, with a memorial bench, which is made out of the pitch. That sort of innovation is what you need, really, because there are going to be some challenges, especially over here, because we've got a lot of pitches with the rubber crumb infill, the artificial surfaces. You've got hybrid pitches here that are throughout, especially the top two leagues in professional football here, and also rugby. And there's some challenges with microplastics ahead of us in terms of what you do with that ethically and environmentally wise.
We we don't have that struggle apparently over here, but we won't get into that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you get into recycling, for example, I can tell you now there's only one facility in the whole UK that can recycle carpet in this country.
I don't think we have one, so
Okay, so
that's
we're
the
one ahead.
sad truth, honestly.
I'm
Sorry.
hearing this. Somebody's telling me there's potentially a second one coming as well. So
That's incredible.
these guys are going to make an absolute fortune once they build that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that's the thing I love about our sector. Is you've just got people who innovate, and you've got people who think outside the box, and you've got people who are really adaptable. Yet when it's being presented back out previously, and this is where we try and use Grounds Week to get behind the scenes of stories like that, is that there is a bit of an old-fashioned attitude to the sector sometimes from people outside it, and that's where, especially with our work at the GMA, we feel that we've got to keep going and talking to people who've got no idea about the industry. we talk all the time to people in the industry, and we probably moan quite a lot about it to each other at times as well. But it's getting to those influencers that you need next to elevate it to another level. And again, when I've talked to my chairman about this, and we've both come out of sports bodies, and he in particular set up the national lottery scheme over here, which is a massive funding program for sport here. He made a really good observation. He said to me quite a few years ago, he said, look, we're about 10 to 15 years behind where coaching's regarded in this country, and where the officials that run the games, i.e. the referees or whatever, the administration of that, we're about 10 years behind them as well. So how do we get our profession elevated to be seen in the same discussion, the same conversation as the coach, as the manager, as the official? And that's kind of where we're trying to get with what we're trying to do to influence the reach of our industry and subtly get that bedded in, so it just becomes part of the mix and not taken for granted.
That's incredible. One of the big things that coincides with all of that is that, you guys promote such incredible natural grass playing surfaces in comparison to the artificial. And with, obviously, you guys focus on ensuring safety across the board, as we do too. What has it been like, being able to promote the necessity of natural grass at the highest level, to the point where it's required in a sense, how have you been able to promote that and honestly, from an observer, you've been able to promote that from the Premier League, requiring it down to that grassroots where the volunteers have been able to use the, obviously the resources you're providing to create a similar pitch, at that level. What has it been like to be sort of at the forefront of, natural grass, hybrid pitches, obviously involved in that, but what has it been like being at the forefront of promoting natural grass and just being able to create a standard that truly is above reproach in every aspect of the game as a whole?
So we've been lucky. So we managed to work. We're just coming into the 10th year of the program, and we've just secured another 4 years of that program going forward. So we've had to apply for funding to establish at the grassroots level a team of people who go out and do site assessments of these pitches. And what's that means is we've collected all that data. So the 7,500, 8,000 pitches that we've now seen or had reports written about, we've got all that data, so we can crunch the data now, and we can break it down to the locality where those pitches are, because there's always site variances, the topographic information that you need in terms of, the soil makeup. It could be a clay type situation. It could be something completely different. We've got all that information, and we can now track the progress of those pitches. But the key bit is you can put the best drainage scheme in the world into these systems, these grassroots pitches at a local level especially. But if you don't have the expertise to understand that a drainage system is probably going to sink after 5 years, if you don't know how to manage it, then you're writing off quite a big investment. So again, what we do is we kind of strip it all back. And at that basic level, we give appropriate advice for appropriate people on site. So if you don't have a team of people with the skills to do that, it's how do you maintain a pitch at its very basic level? And that comes down to a forward plan. And working month by month, season by season, to do the right thing at the right time, using tried and tested practices that we all use. And then, as I say, as you get up to the higher echelons of sport, and when you're talking about, the Premier League or Wimbledon or anything, the process is still the same, right? It's just probably you've got some pretty heavy agronomic expertise going on through a consultancy company, or through best practice, because the grounds managers themselves can do that work, who keep that pitch to the optimum playing level. And players want a safe playing surface so they don't get injured. That professional players that we deal with, and the coaches that we deal with, and again, this is one of the things we're working on, is having much more engagement with the biomechanics aspect of sport. You know, giving the data to the coaches so they can see, you know, was that pitch at that game at this level of compaction or hardness, or, you know, was it true and even across the whole span of the pitch? There is a thing now with ACL injuries, for example, especially with females, which I'm sure John Sockran's looking at this over there, but, you know, that could be a myriad of things. It could be down to the surface. It could be down to the stud pattern of the boots that you wear. Who knows? It could be the conditions of the day. But in general terms, I think going back to the young ones coming through, we would encourage everybody to say, make sure you do your data and keep your data. Because you never know when a bad situation arises, a star player gets injured, they turn around and blame the ground staff, and the ground staff haven't got any evidence to back up. Well, actually, it was nothing to do with the pitch. The pitch was fine. It probably was the boots, or it was something different. You know, that's kind of I think the trend that we see a lot now, and the younger age groups seem to embrace that far better. And they're also quite good on social media as well, which I'm rubbish at.
But yeah, they love their social media. I can tell you that much from my teenager students, you know. But I love the fact that, you know, you obviously being able to do all those site visits and taking all of that data, you guys go so much far beyond the pitch when it comes to data. And that's something that I think truly is a driving force, because something that I've learned, you know, in my time as a teacher is people pay attention to the data when they're using money, you know, and I think that's something that it plays such a big role in just sort of the accomplishment and goals of the grounds manager, you know, as an educator, as a teacher. You know, being able to back up what you're saying with data is something that will truly carry you, you know, way beyond what you thought you could accomplish, you know, in whatever role that is. So again, from a, you know, a teacher's perspective in America, it's truly something that people should aspire to be more, you know, data driven when it comes to decision making, when it comes to managing their fields. I know that our fields here, we do a lot of collecting of data from soil tests and all that, from tissue samples. It's just something that when you follow the data, it's going to provide a greater opportunity, you know. And you kind of just gave some advice, but I'm curious, what else would be some good advice for grounds managers, you know, who have become a member of the Grounds Management Association, just sort of not just to promote themselves, but to promote the industry as a whole?
I think it's quite a humble industry, and you know, I think some of the older generation that I speak to sometimes see that the younger generation maybe get on social media quite quickly and then maybe think they've made it, but they haven't got necessarily the years of experience that some of the older generation have got. So I think that's a generational difference that I see emerging. So my advice is keep your head down, don't get ahead of yourselves. Deliver and control what you can control, and let the rest be the rest. But I have to give a nod also, because we've got over 200 companies that are members of the GMA as well. And there's some really good people in those companies that help and support the ground staff in situ. I mean, there'll be one that you know, I'll give an example of Simon Gumbrill with the lighting rigs at SGL. I mean, Simon's fascinating. I've seen his presentations at SFMA, and he's done things for us. And you know, you've got companies like that who are leading the innovation with the lighting techniques, but they're also willing to share that information. And, you know, okay, at the end of the day, their business is to sell one of those lights. But if that helps ground staff get through some dodgy moments, those lights are probably, you know, repay them 100%. And I just think, listen to some of the people that supply as much as the people that do. And you know, we've got scientists working in this arena. We've got, you've got to look at people like yourself who are in the schools and the colleges, and frankly, in our country, that's an issue. It's an ever decreasing circle. We've got to work out why college lecturers are leaving. If it's not enough courses being run because there's not enough people to do that, then we've all got a collective responsibility to turn that around. So I think it's always been a welcoming sector, certainly in the UK, and whenever I've visited America, it seems to be the same. And talk to people. I mean, you've got Pam from the UK in your college system, and she's a superstar. She's just brilliant.
She's an incredible person too, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, people like that can help. And I can see, when I've been at your conferences, she's a magnet to young people, and you need people like that have got that ability to engage people and bring people through. And once people get into that network, I think people are more than willing to try and help.
To be honest, you couldn't explain it a better way of this industry, here and there. Just, I mean, me reaching out to people over there, just making connections, and just the best people that want the best for everyone around them. And I think that's what's so special about this industry, and what's so exciting, for young people to be able to see that and to understand that, there are people out there that care, that really have nothing to do with you and are not really a part of your life all the time, but they want to see you succeed, and they're willing to help out in any way that they can. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on just the industry as a whole and what we can accomplish, all together and working towards a greater good. There was one thing I do want to talk about for a little bit before the end of this podcast. Over there, there's a level of professionalism that I don't think we've obtained here in the US. How has it become, the forefront of your work to, obviously promote the professionalism, but also have the higher standard that is sort of expected of the groundskeeper, or the ground staff, sorry. And just understand, like, something I've always taken note of is Carl wearing a suit on game day. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't do that, but it makes sense in this, if we want to be taken serious, being able to present yourself in a way to, have that sense of professionalism alongside, the front office staff from other groups, introducing yourself. What has it been like seeing that professionalism grow over the years, and how has the Grounds Management Association been able to promote such professionalism in the entire, association?
Well, if I'm honest about it, we're all quite relaxed when we're at our office. We don't necessarily wear suits, but I think what I would say to that is we know the occasions when you should, and we know the occasions when you don't need to. And I think that's part of maturity of management. In that sense, you're managing yourself, and I think what ground staff in the UK have to do all the time just to stay where they are, or to, get elevated in their workplace, is to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And our job is to facilitate how you can do that. And you have got, I mean, it's great that you've just used the example of Carl. I mean, because, it was probably quite unique that he walked across Wembley Stadium in a suit, but that's Carl. We don't necessarily teach that. We can't take credit for Carl wearing a suit. He's just professional. And what we are seeing more and more is that you need to be a good communicator these days in the workplace as well. You can't hide away. But if you're not the best, then employ people who can get you there. Don't be afraid to employ people who've got better skills than you've got. I definitely work on that basis for myself. I have terrible imposter syndrome. And I know that I've got a really good team of people who've got a range of skills that I will never have. And I will always say, if you're building a team, build a team that gives you the skills that you need to get you where you need to be. And it doesn't just need to be you having that skill base. But if you can lead and get other people to follow and use that skill set wisely, then you're on the route to success.
Perfect. Everything there was incredible. Is there anything that is coming up for the Grounds Management Association that you might want to share? Any exciting initiatives, anything that would be, good to know moving forward?
Good to know. Yeah, my comms team said I couldn't tell you.
That's fine. I totally get it. I get it. I'm excited to see what it is. I'm excited to see what it is for sure.
We will have a new skin on our website, so that's coming. Fingers crossed.
Awesome.
This year, I'm going to say this year. That gives me enough space,
wiggle room, just enough time.
Yeah.
Love it.
But yeah, we're working on that, and we're working on actually the membership package itself with a bit of a reinvigoration of it to make it fit for purpose for 10 years ahead. I mean, we're actually celebrating our 90th year of existence this year. Sometimes I feel like 91 myself, but my challenge, which I said to my board the other day, is so what does the GMA look like in year 100?
That's awesome.
Who knows? Is it going to be an iPhone or is it not going to be an iPhone? I don't know.
Well, I cannot thank you enough. This has been phenomenal. I truly cannot thank you enough. Happy Grounds Week. It's an incredible opportunity to talk with you and just be able to share all the incredible things you have going on. And, I'm excited to see what the future holds for all your members and obviously everybody that's involved. Again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, well, you need to come over. You need to get a lot of you over there. There must be some big companies with some budgets with a big aircraft that can fly a few Americans over.
Hey, I'd love to come over. I'd love to bring some students for sure. Just let me know the time and place. We'll be there.
That's it. 30th and 31st of October, Saltex. That's what you want to come for.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.